The organs of knowledge and the organs of action tell us how the mind receives knowledge and how it expresses itself. And those are called the jnanendriyas and the Karmendriyas. Both of these evolved from the sattvic and rajasic aspects of the ego. The jnanendriyas are how the mind receives information through the sense organs, and the Karmendriyas are how the mind expresses itself. And in between the two, the mind sort of makes sense of the data that it receives before it expresses itself. The jnanendriyas, also known as the organs of knowledge, are basically the five senses. And they include the ears, the skin, the eyes, the tongue, and the nose. And those are ordered by the five elements: ether, air, fire, water, and earth. The organs of action, on the other hand, I mentioned, they are how the mind expresses itself. And so the mind expresses itself through the mouth, the hands, the feet, the reproductive organs, and the anus. And again, those are in order of the five elements: ether, air, fire, water, and earth. So the mouth produces sound, and the ear hears the sound. The hands produce touch, and then the skin receives the touch. And here the hands are translated as grasping, because that is, in a way, how the mind touches things. It wants to grasp them or have them or possess them. The feet are used for walking and motion, and the eyes see the motion or see the walking. The reproductive organs are made for procreation, creative acts. And the tongue, in a very sort of poetic or figurative sense, is the one that tastes and therefore selects things. And so the organ of selection is sort of how we direct our style and our taste. And that's kind of what, from an artistic point of view, our creative acts are also in that same style. The anus with elimination is coupled with the nose for smell. So when any object eliminates or a molecule it jumps off of a flower and then goes to your nose, that's how you smell it. So elimination here, again, is used in a very figurative sense of the word. Let's talk about the seed elements. So on the one side, the sattva and rajas side, we have the sense organs and the way that the mind expresses itself. On this side, we have the seed elements. We have the matter itself, the created world, the sort of shapes of the clay, if you go back to the metaphor that we've been using in discussing Sankhya. And so here we have seed elements, and the seed elements are basically you can almost guess that these would be the roots of creation or the precursor to the created world or created universe. And it's called the Tanmatras, the different seeds of creation. So the 5 sense organs are the 5 ways in which your mind wants to enjoy reality. So it's the 5 ways that Purusha wants to enjoy Prakriti in the terminology of Sankhya. So here are the 5 Tanmatras: the sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. And notice that's been part of our discussion. On the sense organs sense these things, and the mind expresses itself in a way through these mediums. So sound is the medium through which space is experienced. And the example here is like an echo in the mountains, as you can see how far the other mountain is away by sound. So sound communicates distance. And that's why it's seen as communicating ether element. Touch is seen as the communicating air, the element of air. The form of something is communicated, communicates the light that's emanating from it, or the fire aspect. Taste is sort of transmitted in water. In Ayurveda, they say a dry tongue has no taste on it. And smell is how you experience earth element. So you can contemplate these. These are not eminently practical, associations here, but you can contemplate them if you wish. But here's the surprising thing about how Sankhya works here through these seed elements. Remember I said they're precursors of created matter. And here's how these seed elements end up creating reality. Again, this is in Sankhya's really flipped upside down world where the individual creates the illusion of reality existing. Here's how it works. Consciousness, or that great big I that is described as the true self in Sankhya, right? That consciousness wants to have sensory experiences. And so consciousness creates an illusion of matter existing. Basically, it wants to experience the world through the five senses, and out of this desire to experience it, it sort of projects the illusion that those things exist. I think it's a pretty wild claim there, that because you want to see, you want to taste something, you create the object of perception. So basically, the material world has no awareness of itself at all. Water doesn't know it exists, right? So it's totally ignorant. And that's why the entire material world is under the branch in the Sankhya map of tamas. And tamas means what? Ignorance, crudeness. Basically, what Sankhya is saying is that an ignorant desire of consciousness creates the illusion of reality existing. So again, a little pessimistic here about the created world, right? This is really opposite to that famous quote in Genesis of the Bible where it says, God made the world and saw that it was good. Here we see that the self made the world out of ignorance. And so there's, I think it's useful to contemplate the difference between those two cosmologies and, analyze that for yourself, what all that means. So the chair appears as a separate object to your mind because you want to see it that way. That's Sankhya's worldview. Ideally, according to Sankhya, you would simply, when you look at the chair, you would simply see undifferentiated energy. You'd see like electrons, protons, and neutrons, and etc. when you look at the chair, instead of seeing the chair. Let's challenge that a little bit. What's more important to you? If you look at a person, let's not look at a chair anymore. Let's look at a person. If you look at a person, what's more important to you? That when you see that person, all you see is energy, atoms, and electrons? Is that what you want people to see you as? If a person looks at you, do you want them to see just a big ball of atoms? Or do you want them to see you? That you've been shaped into a person, that you have a heart with feelings, that you are somehow a distinct entity. Or, so what about Ayurveda? What does Ayurveda think? Well, I would say that from what I know of Ayurveda seems to emphasize the person. It seems to emphasize the individual. It seems to see the differences in individuals and then tailor health regimens according to that. Ayurveda's specialty is its focus on the unique body type, your unique nature, your unique constitution. That's because Ayurveda's goal is health. Ayurveda's goal is your well-being, and Ayurveda's goal is your happiness. Sankhya, on the other hand, seeks consciousness, not health. So in Sankhya emphasizes the atoms, the protons, the neutrons, and the electrons, and it emphasizes the union of all energy into this primordial pool of prana. But that's not what Ayurveda does. And, or at least that's, in my understanding, that's not what Ayurveda does. And so I like to imagine that like Ayurveda is the map of Sankhya flipped upside down. That it's Ayurveda saying, okay, get out of your head, not into your head. Get into your body. Start to see the distinctions in reality. Start to learn how the real world works, and try to figure out how to live well according to reality. Not to call reality an illusion. So I think that's interesting. Charaka himself takes the less extreme view that the soul merely perceives the qualities of reality rather than creating them. And of course, that's the viewpoint that we are going to teach. All right, so again, because of the Tanmatras, or these seed elements, the desire of consciousness to have the 5 sensory experiences, from that in Sankhya, the 5 great elements evolve. And again, they evolve from tamas, or ignorance. Tamas is physical being without consciousness of oneself. And yeah, we've talked about this already. It's kind of like a rock that doesn't know it exists. Let's discuss one of the primary